Nation, thank you for joining us in this live stream. Today we'll show you how to save space in your header by using toggle icons, and we'll use Divi and a Divi theme builder. So if you're non-elegant themes member, make sure that you check out Divi. I've mentioned it in one of the links in the description below, and without any further ado, let's get to it. All right, so I just want to say hi to everyone on YouTube and Facebook. If you guys have any questions while I'm going through this tutorial, make sure that you leave a comment, and I will be checking on those quite frequently. So let's get started. Before we dive into the tutorial itself, we'll take a quick look at the outcome that we'll achieve. So over here, I have a tab open with the outcome of the tutorial. So we have a header at the top, and then we have some toggle icons on the right over here that I'm hovering right now. So if you click on one of these, a toggle item will show up. Now, if I click another one, it will be replaced with the second one and with the third one, and you can untoggle it as well. So if I now inspect the element and show you guys a preview on smaller screen sizes, this is what we get. This is also sticky to the top on scroll, and if I toggle this, it changes. Same goes for the scroll state, so it stays sticky along with the headers. So we'll show you how to recreate that within this tutorial, and yeah, let's get to it. So over here I have a page that has the regular menu going on, and I'm going to start transforming this into this outcome over here. So to do that, I'm going to go to the back end of my WordPress website. All right, and over here, I'm going to go to the Divi theme builder, which I can find by going to Divi, theme builder, and I have a template set up over here already, which is the preview header, but I'm going to create a new header for this page over here. So you can notice that this template has been assigned to this particular page, and that's where we're going to add a new custom header. So here I'll just click build custom header. And I'm going to start building from scratch by clicking on the blue item. Now over here, we'll need 2 sections in total, and we'll start with the first one. So that one will be dedicated to the menu and the toggle icons over here. And then we'll need a second section to add the toggle items, but that's something that we'll handle a little bit later on. So first we'll style the section over here, starting with a gradient background. So you can notice that over here that we have this kind of transition from white to light gray, and we've achieved that using a gradient background. So over here, I'm going to pick a white color for the first color. And then I'm going to grab that gray color and add it to the second gradient. And then I'll keep the gradient type as linear, but I'm going to change the direction to 90 degrees. And use 50% for the start and end position, which will create this vertical line over here. I'm also going to remove the default top and bottom padding of my section by going to the spacing settings and adding 0 pixels to both options. You can already see it shrink over there. So we're changing the height of our section. And we'll also add a box shadow just to create that contrast between the header and the page content. So we'll use a very subtle box shadow over here, and we'll change the shadow color into something a little bit more subtle too. So we're just lowering the opacity to 0.06%. Now that the section settings are in place, we can add a new row. So this is the column structure that we're going for over here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth option from the right column over there. And we're going to make some changes to the row settings. So you can notice over here that it stretches almost entirely until the left and the right side of the section. And we'll do that within the sizing settings over here. So we're going to enable custom gutter width, put this to 1. We're also going to equalize the column height and add 100% to both width and max width. So this will just help us ensure that the width takes up the entire width of the section container. And we'll also remove the default top and bottom padding of our row by adding 0 pixels to both options over here. Now within the custom CSS tab, we're just going to add 2 lines of CSS code to the main element, and that will just help us center all of these items over here. So you can notice that these are all centered, and to achieve that, we'll just need 2 lines of CSS code. The first one being display flex, and the second one being place items center. So this will just vertically align all of our contents. Now on smaller screen sizes, we want to avoid having the columns being next to each other. So you can notice that in the preview. Let me just show you guys again. So these show up below each other. To make sure that the display flex isn't affecting smaller screen sizes, we'll need to change the CSS code to display block on tablet and phone. So I've enabled the responsive option, and I'm adding display block to tablet, which will automatically be inherited by phone. All right, so now we have to style the columns. So we'll start with column 1, where we're going to add 5% of left and right padding, just to have a little bit of breathing space. We're also going to slightly change the size of our columns. So over here you can notice that this is way smaller than the initial column structure that we've picked, and to create that new balance over here that we want, so we don't want too much space for these toggle icons, we're going to add a width to the main element of our column. So the width we're going for is 88%, and we're bringing that back to 100% on smaller screen sizes. So again, that will just assure us that the 2 columns appear below each other, but on the larger screen sizes, it will allow us to have more space in the first column and less space in the second column. Now we can go to the second column over here, and we're going to add a white background color first of all. Then I'm going to go to the spacing settings, and we're going to generate some space. So we'll start with the top and bottom padding, which is 50 pixels for both options and 1% for the left and right side, just to have a little bit of space. You can notice over here at the left and right side. And on smaller screen sizes, we need less space. So I'm enabling the responsive option, and I'll bring this down to 20 pixels for the top and the bottom padding on both options. So tablet and phone. This is what we have up until now for these values. And since we changed the size of the first column, we need to change the size of the second column as well. And we'll do that in the main element of our column. So over here, we're also going to make sure that the items are aligned. And this is the CSS code we're adding for that. So the first line is display flex, then place items center, which will help us align all of the icons, and then a width of 12%. And then we'll enable the responsive option and bring this back to 100% on smaller screen sizes, just to make sure that our column, takes up the entire width of the screen in a tablet or a phone modus. So this is what we have up until now. We've prepared the containers for the modules. I'm just going to take a quick look to see if there are any questions so far. Before I continue, I'm just going to check YouTube really quick on the front end because the comments aren't showing up on the back end. All right, so let's continue. No questions so far. Awesome. So, we'll start with the first module, which we'll need in column number 1, and that will be a menu module. So I'm going to add a menu module over here. You can pick a menu of your choice over here in the dynamic option. Next, we're going to add a logo of our choice. This can be anything really. I'm just going to pick a random icon there. Then I'm going to remove the background color So this is by default white. We don't want any background color there. And then I'll move on to the design tab, and I'm going to style the menu text. Starting with the font, which is Playfair Display. The text color is going to be entirely black. We're going to pick 19 pixels for the text size, 1.4 EM for the menu line height, and we'll choose right text alignment to, push all of the menu items to the right side over here. And then in the drop-down menu text settings, I'm going to change the drop-down menu line color to white, just to make sure that if you have drop-down items, we don't have a line showing up in a certain color. And in the icon settings, we're going to use black for each one of the colors. Right now, I don't have any icon showing up, but if you're, using this on an e-commerce website or anything else, that will be in a black color. And also the hamburger menu icon color will be black on smaller screen sizes. And then in the sizing settings, over here, we're going to assign a max height, actually a max width of 200 pixels. We're using a width of 100% over here and a module alignment that's set to center. Now we can switch over to the second column, and I will be creating all of the toggle icons. So we're preparing the functionality, which will take place a little bit later on. So the first thing we're going to do is add a blurb module. So we're using blurb modules to add these icons over here, but we're removing all of the title content and the body content. We're simply using this module for its icons. So I'm going to enable use icon and then select an icon of my choice. Let's start with the phone, if I can find it over here. Cool. I'm gonna grab it from the back end over here. I have the icon, otherwise it'll be just a hassle to watch me find a certain icon. So there we have it. And then I'm gonna move on to the design tab, and I'm gonna style this icon. So by default, I'm using this color, which is the same kind of gray color, and I'm changing this on hover to black. So when someone hovers it, it turns black, so they know they can click it. We'll keep the icon placement at the top, but we'll use a custom font size, which is going to be 200%. The reason we're picking 200% is because it's super responsive. So it's going to stay true to the width of our column. So if I zoom in and zoom out, it's going to adjust itself according to the width of the column. That's the reason why we're using percent over here. If you were to go with pixel instead of percentage, you might have, these coming too close together or overlapping. I feel like percentage is the way to go over here. And then in the sizing settings, I'm gonna increase the content width to 100% and a width of 32% over here for our entire module. And that's pretty important because we'll fit 3 different icons over here, and to make sure that these will be able to appear next to each other, we'll need to keep into consideration the 100% width that you get from a column. So you need to divide that 100% between 3 items, and naturally that would be 33%, but 32% just makes sure that there's no certain screen size where it accidentally breaks into 2 lines and one of the icons shows below the other 2. So 32 is the best number over here to have a little bit, so that 1% from each one of the modules is just like a buffer, you could say. And to make sure that we'll be able to place these next to each other, we'll need 1 line of CSS code in the main elements of our module, and that one's called display inline block. So this will just help us place different modules next to each other. This specific line of CSS code and the width that we've assigned to our module will help us with that. So these are two important elements, and by default, a blurb module has some bottom margin assigned to it below the icon. So there's a little bit of space between the icon and the content that follows. So we're just going to get rid of that by adding 0 bottom margin to the blurb image element over here. So margin bottom 0 pixels, and this will just remove that default space that's included in a blurb module. So now that we have the first module, we can just clone it once, clone it twice, and we have 3 of them showing up together in the same column. And of course, we're gonna have to change the icons for each one of them. Let me just grab them really quick so we can recreate the exact same outcome as in the preview of this tutorial. I'm just gonna paste the icon over here. I'll have to open it. I'm gonna paste the icon, and let me just grab the other one too. So you can basically use any kind of icon you want. You can honestly also replace it with an image module as long as the rest of the tutorial stays the same. You can use anything you want and make it clickable and have another item show up. So this is where we're at this point, and I'm just going to take a quick look at the comment section before we move on to the next section over here. All right. Let's continue. So over here we'll need another section, and that section will be dedicated to the toggle items. So let's take a quick look at the preview once again. If I click this, a toggle item shows up. So we're going to build these toggle items in a new section. And we're going to open these section settings before adding anything else. And we're going to make sure that the height is set to 0. We just don't want this section to take up any place in our design, first of all. And we also don't want any overlap between that section and the page content. So we're assigning a height of 0 pixels. We're also removing the default top and bottom padding by adding 0 pixels to the top and bottom in the spacing settings of our section, and that should reduce all of the space the section initially takes up. And now we can add a new row. So we're picking that same row that we used in the previous section, which is the 4th one over here in the 3rd column. So that's the option we're going with. And we're going to open the row settings, and again we're going to make sure that this touches the size of our section container. And we'll also enable custom gutter width, put this to 1. This will remove the space between the columns and space between modules in certain columns. We're also going to equalize column heights and use 100% for the width and 100% for the max width. So these are now touching the left and the right side of our section container. We're also going to remove the spacing settings because, again, we don't want this row to take up any space in our header design. We just want it to contain our toggle items later on the tutorial. And to make sure of that, we're also going to reposition the rows. So over here in the position settings, we're going to use absolute, and the location will be top right corner. So by turning this row absolute, it will help us ensure that there's no space being taken up by this row. We're mainly using it to add the modules in the next part of the tutorial. So, all right, let's start off with our first toggle item. So all of our toggle items will be added to column number 2 over here. We'll start with a text module. And let me just grab a random phone number over here to enter in the content box. I'm going to use a black background color, as you could see in the preview of this tutorial. And then I'll move on to the design tab, and in the text settings, I'm going to change the style of my text over here. I'm using a white text color, 27 pixels for the text size. I'm changing the text alignment to center. We're also making sure that this is 100% over here. And this is quite important when we'll move on to another step in this tutorial, which is turning this module absolute. That's something we'll do once we're done creating all of the toggle items. And this will just, help make sure that it takes up the entire width of the column when the position is absolute. And then in the spacing settings, we're going to use 10% for the top and the bottom padding, and 2% for the left and the right padding of our module. And now that we have the first one, we can clone this once and change the content in our duplicate text module. Let me just grab a fictive email address. All right, so, and the last toggle item we need over here is some social media icons, for which we'll use a social media follow module. And you can add up to as many icons as you want, obviously. Let me just add one more, Instagram or so. There we go. And first we'll need to remove the background color of each one of these individually by opening them individually, removing the background color for each one of them. And then we'll add a black background color to the general module settings. But you can also use, I think we're using a white color instead. Yeah. Let me just go back over here and change this to white for each one of them really quick. So not just removing them, also changing the background color to white for each one of them. Then I'm going to go back to the general module settings, and in the alignment settings in the design tab, I'm going to select center. I'm also going to use a black icon color for my social networks. I'm also going to use 100% for the width over here. This is the reason we're using 100% is the same as for the two other modules, because we'll be using an absolute position. We'll need to ensure that the module will still take up the entire width of the column. And then we'll go to the spacing settings and use 10% for the top and the bottom padding of our module. And we'll also assign 100 pixels of rounded corners to turn these into circles. So now we have all of the elements in place. And yeah, now we can just add the functionality to our header. So to do that, we're going to start off by adding consecutive CSS IDs to all of these icons over here in the first row. So we'll start with the first one. So it's important that you follow a kind of structure over here, meaning that the first icon should be linked to the first item, the second one to the second item, the third one to the third item. Very important to make sure that the right toggle item shows up, obviously, once it's clicked. So the CSS ID that we're using is header-cta-1. So 1 indicating that this is the first item that we want to toggle. And then we'll move on to the second blurb, and we'll change the 1 into 2. And for the third one, we'll change the 2 into 3. So these are now consecutive, and we can assign a CSS ID to the toggle items as well. So the CSS ID for the first one is going to be header item 1, and this one just indicates that it's going to be linked to the first icon over there. So naturally we're going to assign header item 2 to the second item and header item 3 to the third one over here. So these will just be kind of connected to each other in the code in the last part of this tutorial. So once you have all of these CSS IDs assigned, you you just prepared all of the containers to have that functionality in place. But as you can notice over here, these, when you click on one of these items, these show up right below the first section. So to make sure that that happens, we need to turn each one of these toggle items absolute in positioning. Otherwise, if I were to toggle this, it would show up right below here, and this one will show up below the second one, as you can see over here. So this would be their position. And that's the reason why we're turning each one of these absolute. And I find that it's the easiest way to do within the wireframe mode. So over here, the icon at the bottom, I've toggled there, and now I'm going to turn each one of these absolute in the advanced tab. So I'm going to select absolute, select top right corner over here, and I'm going to do that for each one of these. So I could also copy those settings, but I feel like doing it manually. There we go. So these are all set to absolute. If I switch over to desktop mode, you can see that they're all on top of each other because of the positioning. So you could also always, reverse those settings if you're still modifying things in your header or something like that, or you can just access them in the wireframe mode. But this is inevitable. We need to turn them absolute before we save the header. Now, to create that functionality, so I'm just going to show you guys a preview up until now. I'll need to exit this, save the Divi theme builder changes, but see, this is what we have up until now. So we don't have any functionality, but we do have all of the items in place. And the only thing that's left to do for us over here is add the code that will help us achieve what we want. So I'm going to add a new code module below the menu module in row number 1 of the first section, and I'll add the CSS code first. So this code, you can find this code by going to the blog post. I believe it's mentioned at the beginning of the description of this video. Whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, you can just click that link and you'll be redirected to a blog post where you can grab all of the not only the code, but all of the steps as well. So you can go through the tutorial step by step. You can grab the color codes, all of the settings. But yeah, so you can find the code there. So make sure to check that out. First, I'm going to add some style tags over here. So make sure that you place the CSS code between style tags, as you can notice on the screen. And we're also going to add some jQuery code, which you can also find in that same blog post. So let me just grab it. And for the jQuery code, you need to make sure that you place it between script tags, as you can notice on the screen over here. So that will just, tell our website that it's jQuery code and that it needs to read it that way. So if I now go back to my website and I refresh it, here we have all of our icons, but we don't have the toggle item showing up. If I click, one appears, and these are interchangeable. And if I click again, it goes away. Now this is still static. You can turn these sections both sticky, but then you'll need to do that for each one of them. So if you want, so here in the preview, you can see that we have a sticky section. If you want that, you can just open each one of these sections, go to the scroll effects, select stick to top, and you don't need to change any of the settings here, and do the same thing for the second section. Very important. So you want that section to follow the first one, stick to top, and you need to make sure that offset from surrounding sticky elements is enabled. It's enabled by default, but you need to make sure that it's enabled on both sections. So that just means, this option just means that if something else is sticky, and if you turn something new sticky, so in this case we're turning the second section sticky, it will appear below the first sticky item, so it won't overlap each other or take each other's place, if that makes sense. So if you want to turn it sticky, make sure you turn both sections sticky. And now if I refresh this, we should have a sticky section with toggle items. So there we go. That was the tutorial. I'm just going to take one quick look at the comment section to see if you guys have any questions. I see you guys are joining in, but not a lot of questions. Kind of means that the tutorial is clear, doesn't it? All right. Well, that was all for this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and we hope that you're enjoying this ongoing Divi design initiative where we try to put something extra into your design toolbox each and every week. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.